Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about the safest way to propagate Monstera Albo and anything else with aerial roots. This process of air layering has been around a long time and it's quite simple. The concept is you convince the plant that these aerial roots or adventitious roots have found a water source and a media, and you allow them to tap into that. So down here on this white tiger Monstera, you can see this pot that we have sitting up on the tray, and we've put in all of the adventitious roots into this pot of LECA to encourage this plant to take root into that pot. We'll then sever off the upper part of the plant and we'll have two plants very safely. In a perfect world, I would have this pot being automatically watered, but I typically just come in twice a week with a cup of water and I pour it on top of the LECA. It's just pure LECA. You can do this with LECA perlite alone, but we found with Monstera in particular, it really likes LECA. Maybe if you're doing a philodendron, try LECA mixed with perlite or just perlite. You can also do moss. There's a bunch of different ways to do this. But I'll simply water in on that LECA to encourage those roots to then branch out and go down. So I'll demonstrate it on this Monstera Albo here. I'll simply set in the pot and the aerial roots. So for instance, these two roots that I'll drop into the pot, and you want to kind of set the height correctly. Now that the roots are down into the pot, I'll fill this pot up with LECA. I'm simply gently pouring it in and letting the roots fall where they may, but I want to cover as much of the roots as possible. And this LECA has a little bit of perlite in it, and that's no bother to me. That just tells me I have to water it slightly less. It will hold a bit more hydration. So there we have the LECA covering the aerial roots. So I'll simply just water over the top of it. Today is Wednesday, so I'd probably do this again on like Sunday or Monday, about twice a week, just to make sure that those roots realize that there is LECA there and that they can root into that substrate. And once I have that rooted in there, then I can take a cutting right at this node. So then I'll have this upper top cutting as a new plant entirely. And we found that this is the best method for successful cuttings. So now we can see the result of air layering. What we did was put these aerial roots into this little pot filled with LECA, and then you can see the root mass that has actually come out the bottom. So if we wanted to, we could cut this plant and have an entirely separate plant from the base mother plant. And that's what we're doing up here also, is we are allowing all these adventitious roots to tap into this LECA because this is such a beautiful plant. The variegation is so incredible that we are very nervous to cut it because we've really never seen an Albo like this one. So now I've peeled away a lot of the LECA that was in here, but I don't want to disturb these roots too much. I just wanted to show you guys these yellow root tips that are developing under the surface. There you go. That's what you want to see. This has been there about 2 to 3 weeks. And this plant is starting to realize that there's something to tap into. So it's developing these fuzzy roots, as well as that yellow root cap is what you want to see. That's the health of the roots. And the more water that is around these roots, the more root branching you're going to get. So although we're not going to cut this plant, I just wanted to show you guys a fast forward of the result of what happens. Absolutely phenomenal plant. The leaf I showed you guys about a week or two ago, and look at this leaf coming out fully fenestrated, just crazy genetics. Look at that striping on the stem. As I said, this can be done with a variety of different media, kind of whatever you have that's not sopping wet and going to rot that area. That's the key thing, is not overwatering it, but you want those roots to search for that water and spread out those fuzzy bits on the roots. That's the thing I'm looking for when I'm looking for healthy roots. So you can do this with LECA, do it with perlite, you can do it with cocoa chips, you could probably do it with cocoa coir or peat, but be really careful not to overwater that. I've done it successfully with sphagnum moss and a few different media, but the more water that the media carries, the more in danger you are of rotting that stem and that adventitious root, just like in potting with aeroid mix. Always add in a bunch of aeration. You could probably also saran wrap on a bit of aeroid mix, and that probably would work. I typically have done saran wrap with the sphagnum moss, and that has worked great in the past. So thanks you guys so much for watching this week's video. If you learned something new, click subscribe so you can come back next week for another video about houseplants. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good day.